Hello and welcome to this week's Quicc Gains live stream. I am joined today by a very accomplished international speaker, social media strategist, a live streamer, trainer, all-round social media guru, Christine Gritmon.
I try.
How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing this morning?
I'm not too bad. You've been a busy lady.
I have been a busy lady.
Live streaming going on every Friday, which the last one you said is this Friday, and it's all starting up again, new look in September.
Yes, I take August off. August is kind of my month of rest, although I'm not doing a lot of rest this August because I'm doing a huge brand re-strategization for when I come back in September. So this Friday is my last episode of Social, which is my live stream that I do every Friday. And when I come back in September, it's actually going to be a new show. Same bat time, same bat channel, but a new show.
Happy days.
That'll be good. Yeah.
And you're doing, we were just talking about this just before we came live, weren't we? You're focusing in September, you're starting with local audiences. So we're going to dig into that and social media in general and strategies and your story. We're going to get through all of it. So yeah, get comfy. But you're starting in September with building local audiences, right? Tell us how that happened and why local audiences to start with in September.
Yeah. So basically, well, it's a few months ago, I decided to just set a timer for 45 minutes and get out a whiteboard and just put down some ideas that I had. And one of the things that really became clear is that I have a fantastic network. I know a lot of really, really great experts, and I have my own expertise. But one of the advantages of knowing me is that then you have access to who the best experts to follow on other things are. So I put together this idea that I actually launched in June, which was about the idea of doing month-long 10-person small group foci, if you will, on specific topics. So I launched it in June with a 10-person focus on LinkedIn, which was fantastic. It worked wonderfully. July I did live streaming. August again, I'm chilling in August. And September, the course will be about building and nurturing local audiences. And so basically the structure of it is it's a month. You're in it for a month. You're in it for a solid month, but it doesn't mean you have to do it for like an hour or day or anything like that. But you do need to be in it for the solid month. The first week, we're just kind of getting to know each other. Second and third weeks are really the meat of it. And then the fourth week, again, we're sort of tying up loose ends, making sure that if we didn't get to anything, we get to it. And I have guest instructors coming in. Again, leveraging that awesome network. I have Caitlin Jenkins and Amy Tischler of Simply Social Media coming in to talk about building local audiences. And I also have Jen Cole of Social Media Examiner also coming in to talk about building local audiences, because that's something Jen did very heavily with her previous company, Depict Media. And there's live Zoom calls every single week with the whole group. There's a very active group with comments. I'm going to be very hands-on during this program, but yeah, September is going to be all about building and nurturing local audiences. And I'm considering, if there is interest, also in September, rerunning the LinkedIn program and the live streaming program, because you always have people who, once you close the cart on something, say, oh, are you going to run it again? Like, this wasn't the best timing for me, but are you going to run it again? And I said, I don't know, because I honestly didn't know. And I still don't know. But if anyone would be interested in potentially the month-long LinkedIn course or a month-long live streaming course, I mean, reach out. We'll see if I get, mass to be able to run both of those things. I can run all three of these programs in September if there's interest. So
I think the thing I like about this is, I mean, it sounds like a bit of a plug very early on in the stream, but it's not, because, and you and I spoke about this before, it's especially right now, it's all about building community, building that person-to-person connection, connecting as humans, not businesses to businesses. It's the humans behind the businesses, right?
That's actually my biggest focus starting in September. That's one of the big reshifts that I'm strategizing now in August.
Let's dig into that a little bit.
Yeah. It's something that's always come very naturally to me. Before I started my business 4 years ago, I worked for a local paper. And the thing that actually led me to social media, I worked in marketing earlier in a previous life before social media was part of it. That was before it was part of our marketing mix for brands. Then when I was in the newsroom was the first time that I was experiencing social media being used to market something and to get engagement and to build community and also to build personal brands. Because previously in journalism, old school journalists were always taught you keep yourself out of the story. You know, you're a non-character. And now they were being told they needed to have personal brands and build Twitter followings. And they're like, what the hell is this? But because I was fairly new to the environment and because I had come from a marketing background, I took to that really naturally and really easily. The personal branding element, the engagement element of it's not just about what you put out on social media. It's about how you reach out to those communities and get people and how you engage with the people who are engaging with you and building relationships with social instead of using social to replace relationships. And so this has always been a focus for me. It's always been a love that I've had. I actually didn't market myself as part of Christine Gritmon Inc. for the whole first year. And people who know me now find that hard to, they're like, no, that can't be true. I'm like, no, it absolutely is. It wasn't until I went to Social Media Marketing World in 2017 and basically got a very educational slap upside the head where I realized, I do need to develop my own brand. I already had my red logo, but what shade of red is it? What fonts do I use? Just all these things. What is my content strategy? What do I want to be known for? And I've been muddling around with that for a few years now. So now I feel like I have a clearer way ahead. I'm still helping small business owners to figure out how to do their own social media. Like that's still what Christine Gritmon Inc. does. But I'm also adding on that element that can be used by anybody, whether it's small business owners, whether it's high-level executives, whether it's fellow marketers even, of how do you put yourself in your brand in a way that is authentic. Because if you're playing a part, if you're playing a role that's not real, that's extra work and people see through that. So how can you tease out those parts of yourself that already are you and turn them into something that works for you?
See, the things I love about that is, well, again, we spoke about this before. I've been very similar to you, building networks, relationships, social media, platforms, scaling businesses for many years. I mean, Quicc, I'm with now. I also have my other business on the side, separate to that as well. And having spent many years growing and scaling businesses for private equity and venture capital. Mm-hmm. In private equity and venture capital, it's very much that B2B thing. It's a business buys from a business, and, contracts going on, and it's very disconnected. It's very cutthroat.
It can be very dry and it can be very not human.
Exactly. But when you really get down to it, this is something I learned many, many years ago, the people who actually make the decisions are the ones that you're selling to.
Yes.
And you can put so many layers of just complexity and stuff in front of it. But it's really that human-to-human connection that makes the difference. So what you're doing and what many people are doing similar to you is putting that at the forefront.
Yeah, I worked with a small business in what one would think was a very unsexy, field, which was, I think, metalwork, basically, as opposed to something like a boutique or a restaurant or something like that, that's a little fuzzier. And one big thing with them is they actually had enough business coming in. But they said the reason they wanted to work with me, it was a younger person. It was a 5th generation person running the company. She's actually one of the only clients I've ever had who's younger than I am. And she said, the thing is, other companies in our space are not humanizing. They're not doing social media content. They're not doing any of this. And that's a really good way for us to stand out because because other places aren't doing any of that. We are the ones where, we're really tied into our 5th generation story. We're really tied into having a female CEO now who's grown up with the business. She realized that they had enough points of difference that people could latch onto and sort of connect to that would really help them stand out. And when it comes down to it, no matter what you do, whether you're a metal worker or a social media strategist, someone else does what you do. Someone else does it. So that's not your unique value proposition. It never, ever is. It's not what you do. It's not even how you do it. Someone else has probably figured that out too. We're not that original as human beings, except we are original as human beings. The only actual unique factor that your business has is its people. So might as well leverage that.
Yeah, and totally. It reminds me of, I can't for the life of me remember what it was, what the business name was, but there was a YouTube channel, there is a YouTube channel, and it's like you say, it's very unsexy, very kind of predominantly like a male orientated industry as well. And it was all about granite looking worktops that aren't actually granite, and it's using like resin and various other things to make a granite looking expensive worktop for kitchens. And there was a lot of people who can't afford granite worktops, and they could afford the resin stuff, but then there's not many people doing it. They don't know how to fit it, and they didn't want to pay work people to come in and experts in that field to then pay them for installation. And it was just,
and they don't want the fake thing to look fake too.
Yeah, exactly. So what this company did, they were struggling to turn over 5 figures, I believe, of installation revenue. And they started up a YouTube channel literally showing people how to do this stuff themselves from home, DIY style, and they're supplying the goods. And within 12 to 18 months, their YouTube channel was into the 6 figures, and they're turning over close to 7 figures a month now in just supply of the hardware and the materials and the educational kind of the tools and everything that goes with it. They're basically now empowering America in general to do this stuff themselves via mail order. But before, they were literally just struggling to make ends meet locally within a certain region a certain distance of their home base. And they flipped it and got very, very human, served, created the engagement, and taken off massively. And that was all talking to
brilliant.
People's needs.
Yeah, that's really the key, like looking at people's actual needs too, because if you just focus on what you want to sell to people, that company would still just be selling granite probably, or selling installation, or doing something like that. Whereas instead they looked at what conversations are people actually having? What are people actually looking up? How can we go to where they already are and, answer something that's something they're already looking for?
And from your perspective, and this could be an interesting one potentially, depending on the business, obviously, because obviously all businesses are different, all markets are different, all niches are different. Not niches or niches, but niche, because I'm in London.
All niches.
All niches, exactly. They're all different. But what do you think is the common thing that all people actually look for when making a buying decision? Niche aside.
Trust. People are loath to part with their money. First of all, their money, their time, their effort. Second of all, increasingly as a society, we've been seeing our purchasing decisions and the products we choose to use and the companies we affiliate ourselves with, even at something as basic as what we just purchase for our own personal use. I'm not even talking about like personal brand, like our personal use. We feel like the brands that we're choosing and the companies we're choosing are more and more a reflection of self. And that's a fairly modern invention. I feel like that really started hardcore around the 1950s, probably, maybe a little earlier, maybe like the 20s. But, previously there wasn't such an open market. If you wanted soap, you just bought soap. And, now the soap you use is a reflection of self. Like all of our purchasing has become that. So first of all, people want to trust that the brand that they're using says something about them, even if it's just to themselves. But second of all, they want to trust that it'll work, obviously. They want to trust that their money's being well spent. But increasingly, there's another factor in there that has been moving up the totem pole a lot, especially now, which is the story. Do they connect with? Is it a company they want to support? Is it a company they feel some sort of internal resonance with? Again, going back to soap of all things, I used to just buy whatever big brand body wash at the drugstore, and that's just what I used. And then I came 10 years ago now. I came across a local company called the Soap and Paper Factory. And I did not use bar soap. Bar soap was not my jam. I thought it was kind of gross. But I started trying their bar soap, and I've been using their soap for 10 years. And I love that it's made in my town. So that's a situation where maybe could I find something that has an even better scent or moisturizes even better or cleanses even better? I might be able to. Probably. Could I find something that's cheaper? Probably. I love their story. I feel resonance with their brand. I literally know the people who make it. And it is also a good product. It has to fit that, how do I feel about the product itself? I trust that this product is not going to make me smell bad. It's not going to make my skin peel. You know, I'm going to get clean. I'm going to smell good. I'm going to be soft. So the product still has to pull some of that weight. But increasingly, the story behind the brand, the story of the brand, and the resonance with that brand is increasingly a part of purchasing decisions. And I feel like now, especially during this global time when we're craving human connection, if you have a choice of where to spend your money, I feel like people, maybe it's just me, but I feel like people are a little more likely to spend it with a business that might otherwise not make it through this. I feel like they're a little more open to discovering things online because they're not going to the actual store and seeing things. So they're saying, you know what, previously I would have just wanted something that's convenient. I could just go to the store and get it that day. But now I'm ordering online anyway. So if I'm ordering online anyway, I might as well click on this thing that just advertised to me on Instagram. You know, I feel like there's kind of a shift there. I hope there's a shift because I'm of course a huge fan of small businesses. But I think that there is. I think people are needing to connect a little bit more with their brands, and I feel that you know, it really goes across all verticals.
It reminds me actually. I was watching the news just I think it was earlier this morning, and I mean I'm in London over here in the UK. You're obviously not. Got a lot of time differences, but it was an interview with a coffee shop owner, and this coffee shop was literally across the road from Google's offices in an area called King's Cross in London. And Google, as we know, some people might do, some people might not. Google announced yesterday, the day before, that they've actually quite happy for their staff to continue working from home up until summer of 2021.
Wow.
And yeah, they're looking after their staff. They're making sure that people have options and choice. So, you know, good in that sense. But this coffee shop owner was saying that he and various other retail outlets, high streets, shops, hospitality businesses, they have positioned themselves specifically in areas where many of these larger businesses actually base their staff.
Yeah.
And he actually kind of took the camera crew on a little walk through the streets around Google's head office and other businesses in the area, because there's many of them, not just Google, of course. And it was like a ghost town. It was middle of the afternoon on a weekday and very, very quiet, like very quiet. And they're all struggling.
Yeah.
And they're all, you know, they're all suffering to one degree or another. And he was actually saying, or asking people to venture out. And if not venture out, then, you know, takeaway options through Just Eat or Uber Eats or whatever the options may be in your local area to support and keep them alive. But they're very much questioning their longevity right now.
I know a lot of people who really didn't know if they were going to be able to open on the other side of this. And I know a lot of people whose businesses have closed. I live literally 2 blocks away from one of the few little villages near me that actually has kind of the like little main shopping drag and all of that. That really is all local. We have a Starbucks and it sticks out like a sore thumb because everything else is small, local, often so local that it's owned by someone who lives in town. It's very much that type of place. And so when the announcements started to come of the businesses that were not going to make it through COVID, when the announcements started to come of saying, sorry, everyone, we tried, but we're not going to be reopening our doors, it really hit hard because we know those people. Like, it's not just, oh, there's going to be another empty storefront that's bad for town. It's like, no, I enjoyed not only that product and not only that environment, but I enjoyed going to see the people who sold it. You know, the owner of the business was always the person you saw behind the till. Like, that was always, and so we've gotten to know these people. We've grown up with them in some cases. And so it has hit very hard, and it's going to continue to hit hard. But I think that's actually a good thing. I think that's ironically the only thing that is going to turn this around for local businesses is having people experience like, oh, this is what happens when we don't go to them. You know, because Target is still open, Walmart is still open, you know, Starbucks is still open. They're not going under. But seeing how big an impact even just the first month of lost earnings had on some of these businesses, it really emphasized that if I'm going to go spend money, I should try to spend it locally if at all possible. Although then there's the other part of some businesses have made that impossible. Some businesses have not done the work to pivot to, you know, curbside pickup or online shopping or anything like that. I actually volunteered at the beginning of all of this. 2 chambers of commerce I'm a member of. The Chamber of Commerce for my own little village right here, and Chamber of Commerce for some towns right across the Hudson River from me, an area that I actually do way more of my business in. And I said, hey, fellow chamber members, if you need help like beginning the setup of an online store, I won't do it for you, but I will guide you through how to do it. Or if you need help figuring out how to offer online gift certificates. This was especially for restaurants who weren't doing takeout, and especially really early on when you sort of couldn't do takeout. You know, I was like, I will help you for free, walking you through how to set up an online store and walking you through how to set up online gift certificates, because I wanted those businesses to be there. I'm like, it is worth my time and my effort and my work that I get paid for to help you so that I selfishly can shop at you. Because that's if they didn't have an option for people to continue to spend money at them, I mean, people couldn't, no matter how much they loved them.
So this is going to be a very subjective question, but what do you think the new normal is actually going to be? What was your gut feel for that?
I think that takeaway is certainly going to be a larger part of the mix of business for restaurants, for coffee shops, and even for stores. I think that a lot of these stores that temporarily set up, okay, you can order online and pick it up curbside, they previously probably never really did that. They'd maybe get one phone call a week from someone, hey, do you have such and such? Okay, great. Can you put it aside for me? Can you take my credit card over the phone? Great. They probably got maybe one of those a week. They probably didn't get a ton of that. And I think now they're going to have to continue it, partially because until we have a reliable, safe, tested, widespread, cheap vaccine, I know a lot of people who are still not going to be going out because they are high risk. So that high risk population is bigger than a lot of people think. So those who feel fairly safe and healthy, who are going out and about and starting to re-enter normal life, I feel like even still, I'm being more cautious than a lot of people, but I feel like I still wouldn't feel like browsing in a store anytime soon. Our local record store is a great example. Our local record store, I used to just kind of pop in on a whim and leaf through the used records. And I had, my price point in mind, and I had my era and genres in mind. And I was like, if I see something, I see something. If I don't, I don't. They've been killer with that. They are on top of their Instagram every single day, showing what they've got in. They have their online store completely up to date. I've seen the circumstance where they've posted something on their Instagram, on that little post where they're leafing through the new stuff that came in. Someone instantly comments, hey, hold that one for me. And then they say, okay, it's on the online shop. And that person goes to the online shop. And when I go to the online shop, like an hour later, it's marked as sold. And that person could just pick it up at the curbside. They've done a really, really good job of taking that browsing experience and putting it on Instagram. So that's where you make your discovery. So they
That's clever.
say, yeah, because if you're just relying on deliberate, oh, I have to go buy this thing, let me go to the store and do that, that's going to be way less in sales than if you allow people that pleasure of discovery, that pleasure of going to your Instagram, seeing, oh, what was that she just thumbed past? Oh, and like getting on it. They're very active in their comments. So they know if someone commented and said, wait, was that Ray Charles? They can go back and say, yes, it was, like instantly before the person loses interest. And they've also got an online shop that facilitates that sale, and they've got a setup for safe pickup. So I feel like the more businesses can recognize that their temporary stopgap measure of takeout is not so temporary and not so stopgap and needs to become a part of their business that they focus on, the more they can then start creating the experience of it. It is moving from a functional necessity to stirring in more of that experience.
Something I did I did a LinkedIn live stream, I think it was, about a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually talking about the tactics of growing social media channels.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking very much about the emotional connection right here.
Yeah.
But I mean, what you were just saying then is it's a really good segue, actually, because that's the strategy and the emotion and the connection, the community aspect.
Mm-hmm.
But tactically speaking, especially with that example you just gave, something they did exceptionally well, from the sounds of it, is that they were leveraging the engagement locally, and that constant back and forth within DMs and everything else. So algorithmically, certainly within Instagram, that is just firing triggers again and again and again, just constantly just pinging that algorithm. So the more they do it, the more people engage, as you well know, the more they're going to be showing to people locally, the more their content's going to be shown to people who look like people who buy from them already. And that sounds like a really, really good way of building that credibility and of building that community. And I think many companies and businesses, even in personal brands, they don't engage enough. And I mean, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was your thoughts on consistency of action. And whilst many people can repurpose content on multiple different channels, as we can dive into that as well. But I mean, something I've been doing much more of these days, and I've been recommending others do as well, is focusing on one or two core platforms, like one long form, one short form, and just doing that instead of trying to be everywhere and being everything to everyone. Just be something to someone.
Oh, I like that.
Limiting that. Thank you. It's phrased.
Nicely phrased.
But it's that limitation and focus, so you can have consistent action. I mean, what are your tips to business owners, especially, to get that real focused, consistent, daily, multiple daily action, and to keep it up? Because if you drop it, then you're kind of back to square one again, aren't you?
Yeah, it's much harder to regain it than it is to maintain it, for sure.
Yeah. So what's your tips on that?
And here I am getting back in focus. I know my focus has been going in and out, everyone, just so you know that I know.
Just lean forward and back. just make out like it's the camera can't keep up with you.
Yes, I'm just headbanging. No. So one trap a lot of businesses fall into, especially small business, the smaller they are, the more they're likely to fall into this trap, in my experience, is they worry that they don't have the bandwidth, the time, the people, the money, the talent to create content. So they worry so much about what they should be posting and about if they'll be able to create it all, and constantly on that hamster wheel. And sometimes they say, screw it, and just don't do it. Sometimes they do it just to get something up, which is almost as bad. And what I recommend, and the biggest part of that is that they're not focusing on the things that will actually get eyeballs on that content. I mean, if you build it, they will not come. You can have fantastic content, and if nobody's seeing it, it is not helping you. So what I've been actually shifting more and more towards is not just teaching my clients engagement strategy in addition to content strategy. Content's important. We have to answer that question. But I've been really telling them, you need to spend at least this much time on engaging. Go out there and engage with other accounts. Make sure you're engaging with everyone who engages with your content. Use the engagement you're getting to inform your future content strategy. What types of content are getting engagement? Great, do more of that. What are some of the comments happening on those pieces of content? Are they maybe clues for other type of content that might work well? So I think increasingly you could get away with a really, really basic content structure. There's types of content you could batch create. You could just take a bunch of pictures all at one time instead of doing it daily. You can create a whole bunch of, nice little branded graphics in Canva or Easel and, have those in your pocket and schedule them out at regular intervals and like be consistent with it on a fairly hands-off level so that you can free up even more time for engaging. I feel like engaging needs to become a way bigger part of people's marketing mix when they're looking at how they're spending their time. And I feel like that hasn't been the case. People are worrying about solving the question of what to post when they should really be solving the question of how are we going to get eyes on it? How are we going to get conversations going? How are we going to get this incredibly valuable market data that we can only get from our audience? Because you look at the studies that say post it this many times a week on Instagram, post it these times a day on Facebook. That's the entirety of the billions of people using those platforms. That's not what you need. What you need is to know what your audience wants, what works for your audience. And the only way to do that is to put things out for them to react to and then pay attention to that valuable market data that they are giving you with their interaction.
We've got well, it's not really a question, it's more of a statement from Marissa, which is, is a very interesting, I think, a challenge that many people have. I think it's kind of cutting off my head. I feel like I need to kind of like put myself above the comment. It's like cutting off my chin. But so Marissa's saying she's actually limited the time on her phone because she doesn't want to be dependent on it, and she thinks it's toxic, and she thinks she needs to spend more time outdoors for our well-being. So breaking that apart for a second, the outdoors for your well-being, we'll talk about it in a second. The bit about being dependent on your phone and toxicity of social media. Now that, as I know, and and many people who are watching this will know, whether they're live or whether they're on the replay. And if you are experiencing this, stick it in the comments and just say, yes, you are. Because there is a huge level of toxicity, especially on social media. Some channels are worse for it than others.
Yes.
And many people are put off by putting the message out there, being their authentic selves. And so I have to get rid of this comment because it's kind of like cutting off my face and it's annoying me. But many people, they stop from putting themselves out there because they don't either want or know how to deal with the toxicity that sadly exists on social media.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your tips or suggestions on how to get around it, get over it, avoid it?
I would say you can put blinders on. First of all, using social media personally and using it for your business can be totally separate things. You can be someone who barely uses it personally and kind of only uses it for your business. That's fine. That's an okay choice to make. Not doing it for your business, not such a good choice to make. In terms of doing it for your business, you can actually use tools that don't require you to be on the platforms in order to perform not only putting content out there, but also engaging with your comments, doing social listening, finding conversations that are taking place outside of your platforms. If you go on something like Agorapulse, for example, which is what I use, you can certainly go on and not only schedule out or post all your content from there, so you don't need to go on to Facebook or Instagram to post it, but you can also get all of your comments right there. You can engage right back with them so you can keep the engagement on your profile going. But furthermore, you can do that social listening. You can say, you can search for hashtags, you can search for topics, you can search for things, and you can find what you're looking for without having to kind of, wade through the swamp that social media can so often be. Similarly for Twitter, TweetDeck helps a lot with this. TweetDeck is completely free. It is owned by Twitter. I don't know why there isn't a TweetDeck button in Twitter. But tweetdeck.com, very simple. You can have your lists there, first of all, which is a great thing to do if you're not already doing it on Twitter, where you say, all right, these are the people I follow for news. These are the people I follow for social media. These are the people I follow because they're funny. Maybe you want to go on and you don't want to see what Trump said today. You just want to know about marketing. Go on, look at your list. I mean, some of those marketers may sometimes, still tweet that stuff. But generally speaking, you are cultivating the experience that you want to have off platform. You are still engaging with the platform. You are still maintaining that presence. You're still there and you're still engaging and you're still part of those conversations. You're not missing them, but maybe you're missing some of the toxicity because you're able to make that clear separation, not only of the content that you're seeing to begin with, but also there's even a mental switch. If you're going through a different platform, it sort of says, I'm at work now. You're not tempted to look at, your friend's kid in the pool or someone, trying to get you to sign a petition about something terrible that's going on politically or whatever. You're not seeing all of that stuff. You're in there in a platform looking at your work accounts and engaging as your work accounts. And I feel like it makes it a little easier to deal with in a way. It sort of puts you in a different headspace of, okay, I'm marketing now.
I think someone explained this to me, who is actually a therapist, and he, very interestingly, I've been meaning to get him on a podcast or a live stream for months now. So it's reminded me I'm going to have to make a note to get him on, because it's a very, very powerful distinction that he makes, and because he deals predominantly with addicts. So cocaine addicts, heroin addicts, predominantly are his main kind of bread and butter, and he describes, I have to remember for the life of me the biology behind it, but it's essentially dopamine hits.
Yes.
And when you're using social media, we know social media can be addictive. The attention that he describes that people pay to social media is in many cases actually more destructive than cocaine habits, for example. And when he goes into,
psychologically, I can see that.
Well, it's the longer term effects as well. So what he was saying is that even if you're a heroin addict, and I mean, I'm no stretch of imagination a medical professional here, but he was saying,
or a heroin addict, hopefully.
Or heroin addict, no. No, don't smoke, don't do drugs, don't just drink or anything like that. I'm very, very clean.
Good call, straight edge.
Thank you. Yes, some would say boring, some would say me. But what he was saying is that you very few people have ever actually died from an addiction, say, to either alcohol or heroin withdrawal. I mean, it's a very uncomfortable thing to go through. But heroin withdrawal, you don't necessarily die from it. You die from other, afflictions or impacts that compound and then result in death. But the actual heroin withdrawal itself, you don't die from. But there are more people in the world, based on the studies he's looked at, who have actually died directly attributed to their experience on social media than many drug-related illnesses.
Interesting. Like suicides and things?
Suicide, self-harming, that's obviously gone too far. And yeah, suicide is the biggest one.
Yeah.
But it's a very, very interesting and quite sad in some ways topic to look into when you think that so many people are addicted to social media that they can't get away from it, but then so many people are afraid of it so much that they don't go anywhere near it. And I think it's a sad state of affairs when it's such a powerful tool for your personal brand, relationships, keeping in touch with people across distances. Now we're in lockdown. I don't know. Whereabouts are you in the States again?
In New York.
In New York. So whether in New York's in lockdown again or not, I'm not sure. But here in the UK, we potentially might be going into lockdown again.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? And opening up those doors to relationships and communication and engagement can be very powerful to some people. And if they don't do it, it can also be very lonely.
Yes.
So I'm not quite sure where I was going with that one, but I just
I have friends who left social media for a bit for the toxicity, and they came back generally because they didn't know what was going on without it. I mean, there's a reason. It's kind of the town square, and they sort of figured, well, if someone really matters, you know, if I'm really in, you know, worthwhile relationship with someone, we'll be able to keep in touch without it. But there's just so much of the minutia of daily life that we share on social media that we're not going to ring someone up and tell them about it. You know, we've gotten used to having a far greater view into people's lives, into views of what's going on in our communities, especially. I mean, especially over here, we've had a huge national that has become global reckoning over race relations. And so much of that movement was organized via social media. So many of these protests, so many of these actions. There's a lot of stuff like that. So I do believe that it is absolutely a mixed bag. It's a connectivity tool, and what you connect with is what will determine your experience. And to some degree, you can't help it. I have certainly had times when I found myself going on Twitter originally just to do kind of professional things. I'm doing a Twitter chat. I'm keeping up with my network. I'm promoting something, whatever. And of course, I pop by the news area because I want to keep well informed. And I do have my trusted sources, not just Twitter, but trusted sources on Twitter. And I like knowing what's going on. The trending stories tend to rise to the top. And after a while, it's been an hour and I'm just kind of hate scrolling. And I'm like, no, too much connectivity. I'm connecting to the wrong things now. So from a personal stance, I mean, statistics bear out that not as many people are leaving social media as say they are. We've all heard of people, you know, leaving Facebook en masse. Well, Facebook knows how many people are logging in each day. It's not really happening. But in addition to that, if you're doing brand social, even if that brand is you, part of that is, you know, what kind of experience are you to connect with? Are you a negative experience? Are you going to capitalize on something horrible? There's a marketer who I won't name who used a very well publicized story of a guy who died of COVID-19 to try to sell something.
It's
so what type of experience is your brand to plug into? And how can you make sure people know what type of experience you are to plug into? Are you going to make people feel better informed? Are you going to make people feel hopeful? Are you going to be an escape? Are you going to be empowering? I know that's something that I focused on really hard at the beginning of all this. I went live every single weekday for 2 weeks in a row at the beginning of quarantine because I said, okay, people are wondering what you can do now. Today I'm talking about, I'm going to guide you through how to set up online gift certificates. Okay, what can you do now? I'm going to set you through setting up an online store. What can you do now? I'm going to tell you what type of content you can post when you literally can't sell anything right now. So, you know, I tried to make my content be, yes, it was built on the fact that a pandemic was happening, but I was saying, you know what, you're feeling disempowered right now. I'm going to empower you through this. So it's about figuring out what you stand for and what type of experience you are, where to have it. Instagram, I feel like, has been doing great during this because Instagram is widely the least negative platform. On Facebook, things are getting crazy with politics, with conspiracy theories. Twitter, of course, has always been one of the internet's primary receptacles for dumpster fires. But Instagram is still a relatively happy place. I feel like I've seen people who used to not sign on to Instagram a whole lot. They may still not be posting a whole lot. And these are individuals now, not so much brands, but they may not be posting a whole lot, but they're looking at more. They're commenting on more because it's a happier place. So also looking at where does the feeling you want to put out there fit in? I mean, maybe it's LinkedIn. Who knows? Maybe what you want to do is make people feel solid and secure in their careers. And maybe LinkedIn is the place you want to spread your message. But think about what type of internet experience people are having, what people are really fatigued by. Hopping on something that's trending may be a bad thing because it may be trending, but people are kind of overdosing on it and going, I don't want to keep looking at this, but I feel like I can't look away. Don't be part of that. Don't make people wish they could look away. Make people glad you're giving them something else to look at. and hopefully something of value so they don't feel like they're just kind of escaping.
I've got to admit, I have noticed recently, I mean, by recently, I mean the past few months, certainly on LinkedIn, because I spend a lot of my time not publicly putting out content. A lot of mine's dark social. So,
Mhm.
closed Facebook groups,
Yeah.
messaging to and from in DMs, that
Dark
kind of stuff.
social. Are you
Yeah.
selling toes?
I'm not selling toes. No. Sadly, that fetish is going to remain secret.
Yeah. Been to different
no.
sites. That's not LinkedIn.
No, nothing like that. But on LinkedIn, I've definitely noticed almost a degradation in people's tolerance, but also like social skills as well. And whether it's because predominantly there's a lot of people in LinkedIn, at least on the circles that my account seems to attract, where people seem to spend most of their time on LinkedIn and not on other social media channels because they still see LinkedIn as, the place for businesses. But then there isn't the level of tolerance or understanding or even self-awareness to a degree that allows those people to ignore certain types of content, like you say, and stuff that triggers them, they actually react to response, to be fair. And there was one I actually saw that my wife and I, funnily enough, were talking about this morning, and it was a guy who was putting out a post. He was a BAME activist and very much supports that movement, which is fair enough. And my wife, just for context, she is half Bayesian, so her mum's from Barbados, her dad's from North London. So she's mixed race, our children are mixed race. So we talk about this quite a lot, and it's been certainly topics of conversation quite actively in our household on different levels.
Mhm.
And anyway, so this guy on LinkedIn put this post out, and it was a link to an article here in the UK where a country village shop, up north in the back end of nowhere, is selling antique memorabilia for gollywogs. And in the UK, they've got a very mixed topic. I'm not going to go into the details of that. Obviously, that's an entirely different topic in itself. But he had his opinions on it. And there was a guy who commented on that content who had a very different experience because his favorite childhood toy was a gollywog, and he didn't connect it to anything negative at all, even though it does have negative roots. But his comment ended with, for F***K sake, get a life.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking,
that's not LinkedIn. That's not LinkedIn type of content.
I don't often see that stuff, but I've been seeing that more and more and more in the past few months.
People are spending more time on their computers, and on the plus side, they're spending more time on social media. On the minus side, they're spending more time on social media. So I think that you're right, that a lot of people who don't know how to act and haven't developed that netiquette, as it were, are
I like that phrase. Netiquette.
Yes, they're sort of spewing those bad manners all over the place because it's not, they're not taking the environment into account. And yeah, I guess it makes sense that more of that would be happening now because they're, maybe previously they just kind of did that in real life. And now they don't have real life to do that in, so they're going to just be toxic wherever they are, which is the internet right now. I haven't personally seen a lot of that on LinkedIn, though. Now that you say it, I have seen more political content, more socially touchy issue content on LinkedIn than I would have seen previously. I actually would argue that that's not just to do with our current circumstance and people being on the computer more and maybe spending more time there. I would argue it's also because LinkedIn, along with the other platforms, are trying too hard through their features and development and even the way their algorithm works, trying to become more like Facebook. And when it comes to something like LinkedIn, I think you've just shown why that's a terrible idea. I think it's great that we're encouraged to humanize and converse more and bring more of our full selves to LinkedIn. My friend Michaela Alexis is absolutely a huge proponent of that. She has made a huge name for herself on LinkedIn, not only by being an expert, but before she was really a huge LinkedIn expert. Just the fact that she was able to present herself in a very real and vulnerable and open way people could relate to is actually what her whole brand sprung out from, just being herself. So it can be a good thing to be more yourself. You just have to watch what parts of yourself you're putting out there. Because the fact is, the part of yourself that can help other people, which is ultimately what Michaela's vulnerability turned out to be, which was, hey, this is something that helped other people. I should do more of this. Talk about the things that we don't usually talk about in a way that can help people. Being constructive with the keeping it real and using it to build relationships better by keeping it real is a totally different thing than, you know, wearing fishnets to a funeral, right? I mean, you just don't want to, you have to keep the, I don't know where that came from, but the fact is you just have to, you have to bear in mind your circumstances. And it's not fake or phony to leave certain parts of yourself at the door in certain environments. It's just respectful. And so I think that it's actually maybe less to do with COVID and more to do with the fact that the platforms themselves are encouraging the blurring of those lines without properly educating people on the fact that, yes, there still are lines. They're drawn further into your whole self than they maybe previously would have been. That doesn't mean nothing. The fact that, you know, your office doesn't have a dress code doesn't mean you can show up naked. You should probably still, you know, look decent. You're at the office.
See, I've got a theory, not on the going to work naked part.
Yeah.
My boxes right now.
Yeah.
I'm not really.
I'm wearing pajama pants.
Fair enough. This is called, someone used to coin a phrase that I only heard the other day, and they call it online vogue. So in frame, it's perfect. Out of frame, there's mess, there's rubbish, there's like, you know, dirty laundry all over the place. Yep. Online vogue. So I love that phrase. But the thing I've thought for a while now, and just what you were saying is kind of reinforcing it in my brain, is that I think the reason why visual platforms, you know, like Instagram and TikTok in some ways as well, are or have less of those issues is, I think, because the fact that it's actually visual. And I mean, I've certainly noticed on, say, YouTube, there's always, you know, spammy comments and stuff like that, but there's not as many negative kind of like hate stuff that goes on YouTube. There's obviously some, obviously, but I have seen a lot less happen with live video, and a lot less happens when it's even a pre-recorded video. You know, people can actually be seen. If it's like text only, people seem much more almost willing to go down that rabbit hole. And I think that's why the visual platforms are performing better, at least in my opinion, because when someone can see another human being, they can look them in the eye, whether it's in a photo or a video, live or not. I think there is that kind of instinctual barrier of maybe what I'm about to say isn't okay.
I like that.
And I think that's why visual platforms are doing so well.
I'm going to stick to my plan of doing a lot of video because I have a very thin skin. And if, you know, looking me in the eye, especially live, makes people less likely to be cruel because I'm a real human, I'm cool with that.
Well, our live right now is testament. We've had positivity. We've had
Lots
nice things said.
Love from Tim. Love from Marissa.
Yes, there has been a few. So, parting words of wisdom, because we're trying to keep this to about an hour. Building local audiences, being your authentic self, building your own personal brand, getting your business out there and connecting as humans. Where would you say would be like the top 3 things that people should start or double down on to really make an impact in those areas?
I would say
blurriness and all of your camera, which you love, I know.
I would say number 1, good. You know, I thought I'd be able to come up. I got up very early this morning, and now's apparently the part where my brain is sort of conking out. It's running out of juice. I would say number 1 thing is, what do people who like you or your brand or whatever it is like about it? And always hold that in mind. Like, always hold in mind what people like about you, what people like about your brand, because that that's not only a good idea from an algorithmic and just business perspective, it also helps hold you to your best self in a way. Like if you try to embody the positives that you've heard, then hopefully that will help guide the way and help you be a little better online, as well as giving the people what they want, which is important. I would say the second thing is to keep in mind what I said before about what you post is not as important as how you engage. Still care about what you post, but the fact is engagement is increasingly, I mean, it's what the algorithms want. So it's going to get your content more seen. And it's ultimately what's going to get people to feel a relationship with you and your business, which is an increasingly large portion of their purchasing decision, is the connection that they feel. So stop just worrying about what to post. Worry about how you're going to engage. Have a plan for it. And then the other thing that I would say, keep in mind that online is not going away. Social media is not going away. As I mentioned before, the whole online shopping and curbside pickup and all that is not going away. Online and, kind of living our lives digitally, it's not going away anytime soon. So if you have hesitated to jump on board with that, like they say, the best time to plant a tree was 100 years ago. The second best time is now. The best time to get on social media was 5 years ago. The second best time is now. So don't wait any longer, because it's only going to hurt you more. And don't be afraid or intimidated by what you don't know, because you'll learn by doing. It's changing every day anyway. Those of us who do know what we're doing still have to study and still have to try things and still have to read things and find out what's changing, because things are changing all the time. So just get in there. Just get in there.
Yes, just get started.
Just do it.
Funny enough, it's we had Jim Furers here last week, and his parting word of wisdom, was literally start now.
Start now.
Was it start now or get started? One or two. He basically said go.
You see, I'm friends with very smart people, like Jim. And you.
Indeed. So thank you for joining us. Any questions for Christine? Any questions about social media, building relationships online? If
you need any recommendations on great video captioning tools, I mean, I got one.
Yeah, exactly. I put a ticker. I actually have a button right here that can go ticker.
Oh, nice.
I know. There's a ticker. There's a thing. You love StreamYard.
Fancy.
So thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah.
And any questions for either Quicc or Christine, stick them in the comments. We'll be more than happy to get on those and answer them.
Yeah.
Have a good day, evening, afternoon, whatever time zone you're watching in, whether you're live on the replay. And we will bid you adieu.
Bye.
Thank you.